This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements.
It's not going to work. We have other countries with much higher rates of vaccination, and they're seeing record surges of COVID because that's what viruses do.
Many of us are frustrated with the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated.
Their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
We are going to need the people to engage in age-old American tradition of simply saying, no, I'm not going to comply. Now, what are you going to do about it?
It never stops. They want things to get worse because they want you to suffer so that they can grandstand on your suffering and push for even more control.
They have criminalized freedom. They've made getting sick illegal.
This isn't about COVID any more than the Patriot Act was about Al-Qaeda. It's about government asserting more control over your lives, your rights, your properties, and in this case, your bodily autonomy.
It has a lot of vaccinated people alarmed because of the power grab that's involved.
Enough is enough. We better change our tune and start resisting.
Government makes up less than 1% of the population. If even 5 or 10% of Americans simply refuse to comply, all of this goes away.
Absolutely, this is the hill worth dying on.
We haven't given the statutory authority to any agency to do this kind of thing.
There is no such thing as government power. There's only what we are willing to comply to.
We're in a tough stretch, and it could last for a while.
That's what this has always been about. It's never about what they say it is. It's about controlling you. And it ends when we decide to end it.
This BS is going to stop.
It's time for us to wake up.
There's only one way to fight back against this, and it's mass non-compliance.
This is the most important thing to fight against.
You can help stop this. You are the power.
There's nothing, not a single thing we're unable to do if we do it together.
And I'm fucking livid that we are stuck in the timeline where Alex Jones is right. Kind of worse.
Oh no! Oh, okay, no.
Why aren't the Amish afraid of COVID? Because they don't have TVs.
As I said, democracy is a system that reinforces authoritarian ideals.
I hope I don't get canceled. Talk to Steve.
Being a victim of a tragedy doesn't make you an expert in public policy.
Well, I mean, AOC is a drama queen and she's full of shit.
Remember, they lost the Afghan war 10 years ago.
You brought a freaking guillotine.
They said, you don't get to tell us no, we're the state health department, and I said, hell no.
It wasn't making Christianity better, it was making rock worse.
What the fuck do you have on your face, Olivia?
You want to make the world a better place? Have some babies and raise them to not be stupid.
I remember thinking, man, governments are not going to like this shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, activists, shitposters, and people of the internet, thank you for tuning into another episode of O'Donnell for Liberty. As always, I'm your host, Justin. Before we get started, just remember whatever platform you listen on, whether YouTube Live, Odysee, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, or over on LRN.FM, you can help grow the show by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. If you enjoy the content, you can go join our production team by visiting patreon.com/O'Donnell for Liberty. Again, that's patreon.com/O'Donnell, the number 4, Liberty. If you want to keep in touch between shows, follow me on social media and join our community Discord channel where you can chat with other friends of the show at any time. All these links can be found in the description of the video or podcast you're listening to, as well as on o'donnellforliberty.com. So check the description, grab that link, and give it a visit today. First and foremost, shout out to our sponsor, snackswag.com, where you can get all your favorite Liberty merch, including some awesome new hoodies to celebrate your favorite NASCAR driver, just in time for colder weather to start creeping in. So make sure you head on over to snackswag.com to pick up your merch today. I've already got mine. You should get yours. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the weaponization of decency to justify the censorship of alternative and controversial opinions, and how social media giants like Meta, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube are inappropriately influencing the state of public discourse. We're going to take questions. Tell us what you think in chat, and give a big warm welcome to tonight's guest, Odysee's community manager, based Drew Hancock. Drew, thanks for joining tonight. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Can I just tell you that intro was awesome? So that a system is down guy made it. Guy who's way better at editing than anyone in the Libertarian Party and completely outclassed them whenever he had to make that video. Did you actually have Gary Vaynerchuk on your show?
Gary was one of my earlier guests. Gary's a great guy and a friend of mine.
That's awesome. So listen, like people like to make fun of Gary Vaynerchuk. I like Gary Vaynerchuk. Whenever I was a high school kid, he was all motivational for me. Like, that's great. And he's telling you advice like, hey, whenever you're in your early 20s, go for it. Don't play it safe. Great stuff. He's easy to make fun of. Like the Tiny Meat Gang guys, they have a thing called Gary V is Demented, which is very funny.
So believe
but
it or not,
anyway,
I got linked up with Gary because I got in an argument and I was making fun of him on Twitter, and he slid into my DMs to defend himself. I called him a low rent hipster Tony Robbins.
I mean, I can see that. But how do you go from that to yeah, I'll come on your show?
So it turned out we had a lot in common. We both are huge into collectibles markets and crypto, and we started talking, and it really just turned out to me correcting him on crypto a lot, because it was in his early days of his NFT stuff, and he was selling people what I called snake oil with his NFT scams. And he ended up changing a lot of what he was doing based on the feedback he got from me and my audience with his new NFT game. But yeah, no, he's coming back probably next month as well to do a Q&A session.
Oh, is he like because he's a businessman and he's all about this entrepreneurial stuff and into crypto? Is he like a secret ANCAP or anything like Jack Dorsey or like?
So he almost as a rule doesn't get into his personal politics and like where he lands on sides in elections and whatnot. But like, if you go back and watch my episode with him, he does talk about how a lot of his like motivation in economics is influenced by the fact that he grew up in Soviet Russia.
So he's like Malice.
Yeah. So it's more of an anti-communism kind of guy.
I mean, listen, there's nothing like Ayn Rand was like that. There's nothing wrong with that. He's probably, if he hasn't read The Fountainhead, he would love The Fountainhead. I'll tell him that.
I mean, it'd be better than Atlas Shrugged.
I never read Atlas Shrugged. I read Fountainhead when I was 15 because they actually had it in my school library. And I was like, oh, Ayn Rand, I know that name. Well, I probably called her Anne Rand back then. But I was like, oh, I know this. I should read it. And yeah, it's a great freaking book.
Well, I mean, to touch on that, you say Gary V kind of inspired you at a young age to like get up and go. You're one of the younger people involved in the Liberty movement as so far as actually doing shit, aside from just bitching on Twitter. What is it you actually do? Like, other than being my personal tech support guy at 2 a.m. for Odysee, what is it you do?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of bitching on Twitter too, so no one mistake that. I am your tech support guy, so I'll get a text at like 4 a.m. from Justin about his Odysee channel, and he'll be like, hey, Drew, I need help with this. I don't know what's going on. So I do a lot of that. So my title is community coordinator. That was my title whenever I was hired at LBRY, which now I'm not with LBRY anymore. I'm just an Odysee employee. So I don't really know what my title is. It probably still is like community coordinator or community manager. But what that entails is I do everything regarding the English homepage. So whenever you look at the English homepage, that is my work, not so much the coding, but what appears there, the categories, all of this sort of stuff. We have like funny little text at the top. I do those, and it'll be like SpongeBob quotes sometime. Right now it's something like, we prioritize creators, not corporations. I do some of the social media. So like some of the Twitter, not all of it. That's kind of split between me and one other person. I do the Reddit. I do our official channel posts. So I do a lot of stuff. And then there's like miscellaneous stuff. Like right now I'm working with a German guy. I'm putting together a German homepage for us. So yeah, there's just a buckshot of stuff that I'm involved in.
Right, and so that's kind of new, Odysee not being part of LBRY anymore. And it was new to me. And like, I don't know how new it is, but it caught me off guard. And shows you how little I pay attention. I do another show every Monday night for the Free State Project where Jeremy Kaufman is my co-host. And when I introduced him in a segment as the CEO of LBRY and Odysee this week, that's when he told me he was no longer the CEO of Odysee. I'm like, well, it shows how much I've been paying attention.
Yeah, well, we kind of dropped the ball on that. So that happened maybe a month ago. To where our company split, and we just announced it last week. So that's partly our fault. But yeah, Jeremy Kaufman is no longer Odysee CEO. He's just CEO of LBRY, which that was always going to happen. It's not like, oh, we kicked Jeremy out. That was just, he was temporarily the CEO of both, and now he's just not. So our new CEO is this guy, Julian Chandra, who is really great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of great that Odysee's gotten to the point where it can exist on its own without LBRY.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're doing pretty good. We officially launched last December, so it's not even been a year yet. And yeah, we're doing
And how many
Pretty good.
average daily videos are watched or daily uses of Odysee would you estimate there are?
I know monthly it ranges between like 30 and 40 million. As far as daily, we have that stat. I don't know it off the top of my head.
So it's 30 to 40 million people a month going to Odysee to use it like an alternative venue for their media, because we are seeing things like YouTube just coming down. Videos are getting censored and demonetized. I've had I went from being perfectly fine with no strikes to being almost entirely demonetized in a week because I mentioned Let's Go Brandon on an episode. And I had a video completely shadow banned on the Free State Project channel with almost 10,000 subscribers for making a joke about ivermectin in the first 5 minutes of a video.
I gotcha. I mean, yeah, YouTube does that. They suck.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, I'm looking at it like on my other channel, we're not even in it for monetization. We've got monetization turned off and they're still not sharing our content.
Yeah. Well, that's something where like, I mean, they do directly go after you for stuff like that. But even if you just look at YouTube's algorithm, like they're giving preferential treatment to the corporate channels. That's why whenever you go to your homepage, it's a bunch of like Jimmy Kimmel, CNN, like all of this corporate crap. And they give them better ad rates. So where if you're like a normal creator, so like on my channel, I think my CPM is like $3 per 1,000 views. These corporate channels, they get upwards of $10 per 1,000 views. So everything is skewed. And I mean, you look at their content policies. It's not even like a left-wing, right-wing. I mean, it is kind of a left-wing thing, but it's more just trying to make everything like corporate and safe. So like, if you look at some of the channels that, you know, we've brought on, like one of my favorite ones are these guys, Cracker Milk. They do short sketches. I'm not a real libertarian and neither are you, Reed. Cracker Milk, they do like short sketches that are all under 30 seconds and they're all hilarious. I don't know what the cat is. Uh-oh.
You'll find out. My co-host at Forest Mommy loves way more than me.
Yes.
So.
All right, there we go. So they do like short sketches, but they're on the outs with YouTube too, just because, oh, they're kind of offensive and they're kind of edgy and they make, you know, risque jokes. So yeah, it's not even a political thing. It's more about corporate versus everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and that's wild because like video really is the medium that's getting the most out there. Like I look at YouTube, and YouTube has always been the best way to reach people in any length or any medium, like whether short form videos, long form videos, full interviews, or small documentaries. Like YouTube has been historically the best way to get your content out there. Yeah. And they're making it so hard, like with the CPM rate, like to even just make your money back on production with a lot of this stuff. Whereas I look on the audio side, like I'll be straight up and honest, my audio CPM for this podcast is $15. Just for the audio downloads. And that's just from one sponsorship from Spotify. But it blows my mind how quickly we're seeing people crushed and how we're not seeing everyone move over. Like we lost Reed Coverdale on Twitter this month. Rest in peace to Reed.
Right.
We lost I think my follower count goes down daily because more and more people are getting banned every time. I see huge notifications on Twitter and YouTube of new follower, but the count keeps going down.
Yeah.
As accounts are just nuked. But Odysee, aside from some growing pains of new tech, isn't banning anybody. It's growing to adapt to anything that they can. Like every complaint I've had about Odysee has been fixed within a week. Probably because I reached it directly out to you or Jeremy to do it, but
yeah, I mean, you got the direct line.
Yeah, I mean, what else is the selling point of Odysee other than being the uncensored wild west of alternative thought?
Yeah, so that's not even our leading like sales point. So let me just say one thing: if you are a libertarian or a conservative or whatever, go to a different platform than YouTube. Like, yeah, private boxcar. Go to a different platform than YouTube. And what I mean by that, stay on YouTube. I have my own channel on YouTube, but you should be backing everything up somewhere else. Like eventually, if you get big enough, they're going to come after you. With Odysee, the reason why you should do it with us is because we have a sync feature. So all you do when you sign up, you click sync, and everything that you have ever done or ever will do will automatically mirror to Odysee. You don't have to do anything. So like if you're watching this and you have a channel, just do it. There's no reason not to. But yeah, that's not even the censorship thing. Isn't even really our main selling point. And it isn't true that we haven't banned anyone. So we don't allow porn. We don't allow like spam. We don't allow doxing, stuff like that. Which, you know, I think we're still pretty much a free speech platform. But some people, and you've made points to this effect yourself, Justin, will say it's kind of hypocritical for a free speech platform to be banning porn.
I mean, come on. There was a point where Pornhub was going to be the next wild, wild west of media. Like libertarians, before Odysee was a thing, libertarians were talking about migrating all of our content over to Pornhub because they weren't censoring anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that probably would have been. I don't know why we didn't do that. I mean, forget Odysee. Let's go to Pornhub.
No. I think the first one to do it was FPS Russia. When FPS Russia got banned off of YouTube for promoting gun violence by just blowing shit up in his backyard, he uploaded all of his videos to Pornhub, and they were so prolific and had such reach on Pornhub that Pornhub created a new category for him called gun porn.
Nice. I mean, listen, like we're cool with Pornhub and we try to reach out to their people. We ran an ad campaign on Pornhub. Like we were running ads on Pornhub for a little while, which, you know, that went fine. We didn't have maybe our I don't know, maybe it didn't quite work how we wanted it to, but you know, we did it and that's what matters. So anyway, so we published a post last week, I think it was last Wednesday, called Why Odysee Exists. And we wrote in that post that Odysee, and this is also part of the LBRY Odysee split. So in that, we basically explain we don't exist to be a political platform. So Odysee, like we have political creators, obviously, like you can look, like this show is streaming on Odysee. We have Stefan Molyneux and like all of these controversial people. But Odysee that's not the purpose of Odysee. We're not trying to be like BitChute where all the crazy political people come in. Like if they want to come in, you know what, come on in. We don't care. We're not like Rumble where they are just straight up trying to get Sean Hannity and all of these right-wing conservative corporate people. Odysee just exists to be a place for independent creators, whatever way that manifests. So whether that is comedy channels who are alternative and edgy and YouTube doesn't like them, whether that is right-wing creators who say stuff in their bedroom that the corporate YouTube doesn't really like, or whether that's left-wing people, because we have left-wing people come over from YouTube who are getting censored. So that would be more like the Antifa, like, well, not really Antifa, but like the hardcore lefty, like Marxist people, who, you know, they are some of the biggest haters of corporate Democrats, the like Marxists, and, you know, ANCOMs. But so, I mean, that's the main thing with Odysee. We do prioritize independent creators. And whereas you look at a platform like YouTube and you look at, say, a creator we have that we embrace and we give them one-on-one support, and I'm constantly talking to them or whatever, YouTube doesn't care about them. And this is something that I bring up to them. Like, hey, we're a platform, like we care, like I like your stuff. I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't like your stuff. YouTube doesn't care about you and they're going to promote corporate stuff over you. This is a place to where we embrace you and we love you. And you can tell your fans like, hey, this is the best platform to support me. You can go here. You can tip me on my page because Odysee takes way less of a cut than YouTube does. And I mean, we are going to start introducing things like ads and revenue sharing. So at a certain point, it's going to be to where even financially, like one person on Odysee is worth more than one person on YouTube. So at this point, I would say it's more about kind of our priorities, especially with smaller scale creators. But yeah, I forgot what the question even was.
Oh, I don't even know. It's just you bring up a point to me, like to your point of like prioritizing the creators and like not crushing people because of their things. I subscribe to very few channels on either Odysee or YouTube. Like I have ones that I go looking for when I want to watch their content, but the ones I actually subscribe to and I want in my feed are very limited. And they on YouTube, it tends to be just strictly political stuff and a handful of Magic the Gathering channels or gaming channels that I do watch. But when I go to my homepage on YouTube, I never see the content I actually subscribe to. It's always pushed content from major creators that are tangentially related to what they think I want to watch. But on Odysee, I open it up, and the first thing I see every day is Eric July's newest video.
Yeah.
Who I'm subscribed to on both platforms, but I've never seen him promoted on YouTube.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, whenever you go to your homepage, the first section is your following. So all the channels you follow, they're right there, which is, yeah, that's something that YouTube creators complain about. How come my subscribers are not being recommended my videos? Which there is a certain point for. Like if I'm subscribed to someone like David Pacman, or hang on, I don't want to name Pacman. Subscribe to someone on YouTube who I never watch, then I get at a certain point why they would stop recommending me their videos. Like, okay, I guess Drew doesn't want to watch them even if he's subscribed. But still, there must be a reason I subscribe to him. So just keep it up there. Whatever. And yeah, I don't follow anyone either. So on Odysee or YouTube. So I don't miss any of your like if I don't catch your stream, it's just because I'm not following you and I hate your stuff. I'm kidding. But yeah, and we are working on a recommendation system. So we hired a data scientist guy who that's a specialty. And so he's kind of leading a team on building an actual recommendation system as opposed to kind of the duct tape and baling wire type thing we got going on now. So even the video recommendations, those should be getting better in the near future. I think that we're making a lot of progress on that.
Yeah, and even for the people who are uploading to both YouTube and Odysee, like you've made it super easy to prioritize watching content on Odysee if you want to, even when you're looking for it on YouTube. Like me, because I do so much with YouTube for work and some contracts that I work, I had to turn it off because it was actually hindering my ability to do my job. But the Watch on Odysee plugin for Firefox and Chrome is great. Like if I'm watching a video for somebody who has an Odysee channel, it will just open it in Odysee.
Yes. So yeah, it's called Watch on Odysee. It's on the Google Play Store and I don't know anything about Firefox, but yeah, somewhere on Firefox. And basically, so if you're on YouTube and you type in Justin O'Donnell and you click on one of Justin's videos, it'll automatically take you to the Odysee version of that video. So if you're trying to, like, you still use YouTube for stuff, but you want to try to use Odysee as much as you can, that's the way to do it. Because you can just use YouTube, and once you find something that's also on Odysee, you can then watch it on Odysee.
Granted, it will interrupt your autoplay if you have a playlist going on YouTube. I did notice that much. Because it's not going to bring you back to YouTube. Because why would you? That'd just be bad business.
Exactly. There you go. After you get taken to Odysee, that should be a sign. Like, okay, I'm done with YouTube for the rest of it. Let me just go through Odysee and see what they got.
So, I mean, play devil's advocate here from the inside. Like, what are the hangups that you think are keeping people from switching over to Odysee that you're working on?
So the number one thing is our lack of an Android app. So that's something that we need to get done. And that is probably the most common question I get is, where's the Android app? And that's something that, yeah, we have a couple people working on now. So our iPhone app came out months ago. We had kind of two different teams, one working on the Android, one working on the iPhone. The people who got the iPhone app out months ago are now the ones working on the Android app. So that should be coming out soon. We have an alpha done for it. Like I have it on my phone. I have a Samsung Galaxy and I have the Odysee app on my phone, but yeah, it's not really in a state right now where it's ready to come out. So that's probably the main thing. The other thing is obviously like video playback, speed, all of the like load times. No one wants to use a website that runs slow. And like, that's something we get. Yeah, if this is especially something with just like normal people, so not the political people, why would you replace YouTube with a site that's slower? All you're doing is hurting yourself. Like, hey, I just want to watch funny videos. Why should I do it on Odysee if your site doesn't work as well? So that's the main thing. So I think especially we want to work on our infrastructure and kind of get just everything faster and smoother. And we've been pushing out a lot of new features lately. I think that with the Android app and with stuff like that, we are just going to focus more on the foundational things that, you know, you want to have worked out before people will start wanting to come to you, which, I mean, we've had plenty of success already. Like I said, 30 to 40 million users, but there's just more basic stuff that we need to kind of iron out. And I mean, for the most part, everything's fine. Like I'll use Odysee and I won't have buffering. It mostly affects people in like rural areas or like, you know, Australia. I know it's kind of a little bit rough for the Aussies out there. But yeah, so mostly just the basics.
I mean, I feel like even the basics aside, it's something that libertarians, especially people in this libertarian podcasting community and the libertarian media community, should be prioritizing pushing, because we're seeing things like Meta, Facebook, Twitter actually clamp down and try and control the narrative. Like how dangerous is it for like the availability of information, whether political or not, to be censored. Like we've seen that, we've all read these books, we've all read 1984, we've all read Fahrenheit 451, and like nobody's realizing that we're living in it. It's just corporate instead of government.
Yeah. And I mean, so with Odysee, so part of Odysee and why Odysee was kind of created, like another reason, was really to spread the LBRY protocol. So like, I don't want to get too much into the LBRY stuff because that's not really my area, but the LBRY protocol, you can have anything on there. And like the LBRY desktop app, say that, you know, Odysee, say that we decide we don't want, you know, Justin O'Donnell on anymore. All of Justin's stuff is still on LBRY. You can still access everything on LBRY. So even if Odysee, like, you know, I get fired and like we get taken over by Chinese communists or something, everything that's been uploaded to Odysee is still going to be accessible. We're not going to be able to just memory hole everything, which of course, like, you know, that's not going to happen. But hypothetically, if it were to happen, there's that fail safe, and that's part of why LBRY backs us up. And that's part of why we're two separate companies, because LBRY can be a check on us.
Well, what if the SEC shuts down LBRY?
Well, you know what? I think that we are going to win the case. Otherwise, I don't have anything to say about the SEC case without another person present with me.
Fair.
But yeah, Odysee is going to be fine, like no matter what. But yeah, I mean, there's a LBRY stuff, and I say that Odysee, we don't allow porn and all of these things. LBRY is where LBRY is, their main focus is the anti-censorship stuff. And like, that is their purpose. That is why LBRY exists, for people to be able to send information back and forth to each other without a third party. So even if you're using Odysee and not LBRY, you're still helping that goal. Even if Odysee's main mission isn't the anti-censorship stuff, that's part of our vision for the website. And it's more of a benefit to it. So if you look at old YouTube, like 2005 YouTube, or not even 2005 YouTube, like 2010 YouTube, YouTube's main purpose wasn't free speech. Like, they weren't a free speech platform, but still you go on there and it's like, oh, I can watch Stefan Molyneux. I can watch Owen Benjamin, except Owen Benjamin wasn't crazy back then, but I can watch like Nazi stuff. And that wasn't YouTube's purpose, but still you could find all of that stuff there. And that's kind of what Odysee is, except unlike YouTube, we're not going to, you know, forget what made us great and go in this weird corporate direction. So yeah, so even if I say like, oh, we're not an anything goes platform, that may not be our main purpose.
Platform.
Yeah, most things go, and I mean, that's a necessary benefit of using our platform. Like, if we're going to prioritize independent creators, that would be completely against our mission if we all of a sudden started going after people that we don't like.
Right, and it's not even just independent creators on Odysee. Occasionally, when I get into like a playlist and just let things go, I'll get like an OAN news broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have the White House channel on. Like, we have the American federal government is on our platform.
Now, did you guys set that up for them, or did they go ahead and set it up themselves?
That was there whenever I first joined, so I do not know the answer to that question.
Because, I mean, I imagine there's some White House intern whose whole job is to make sure their videos are everywhere. But, like, I can't imagine the Biden White House putting their videos on Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair... I mean, listen, so the White House, they are a stakeholder in LBC. So, like, it is in their best interest for this SEC thing. Like, they're going to want the LBRY to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Rumble, though, somebody who's out there actually advertising themselves as the free speech platform.
Yeah, they're full of shit.
Don't their terms and conditions prohibit you from even complaining about Rumble?
Yeah, so there's one section of it's like their live chat rules or whatever. You can't disparage Rumble or any user of the Rumble service. And so here's the difference between Odysee and Rumble. Rumble is pitching themselves as like, hey, we're a free speech, like we're for open and independent thought. But yeah, their restrictions are, you know, they don't allow porn. They don't allow hate speech against protected categories. All that they are pulling on and all of their creators, if you look, are just right-wing, basic, like corporate channels. And I keep using that word corporate, but you know what I mean? Like Fox News stuff that your average Fox News viewer who doesn't watch Tucker Carlson would probably enjoy. Which, I mean, that's fine. Like, if they want to be Republican tube, that's great. You're not going to take out YouTube and be a YouTube alternative, which I don't even like calling Odysee that, but we'll just go with that word for lack of a better term. You're not going to be a YouTube alternative. You're not going to take out YouTube by just being a Republican platform and just like, oh, we're for Republican content, and that's what Rumble is for. And you look at Odysee and you look at our homepage, we have a lot more than just right-wing content on our homepage. I mean, you see Some Ordinary Gamers, you see Cracker Milk, you see William Moranchi is a guy that I really like. You see all of this just normal, like comedy, music, sketches, animation. That is what I think gives Odysee an edge over Rumble. Because whenever like if you did this podcast to Rumble, you would only be talking to Republicans. And like if you're a Republican on Rumble, you're only talking to other Republicans, which like, yeah, there's a use for that. I mean, I love my echo chambers too. But if you're on Odysee, you actually have a chance of reaching people outside who don't already agree with you. Like how on YouTube, if you're uploading libertarian content on YouTube, there's a pretty good chance that a normie can find your video. With Odysee and with us having this diverse content, which like I said, just go to our homepage. We have an insane amount of diversity, especially for a YouTube alternative. You actually have a chance of reaching people outside who don't just agree with you. And I think that is one of our biggest benefits, especially if you're a political creator, why you should come to us as opposed to Rumble. Because, yeah.
You almost have convinced me to see how long it would take me to get kicked off of Rumble. But
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not sure I'm willing to go through the effort of setting up a platform to talk to people who listen, I'm not going to say January 6th was an insurrection or the worst thing to ever happen in history, but I feel like the kind of people that are on Rumble are the kind of people who don't think it went far enough.
I mean, I think I should just keep my mouth shut on January 6th, if I'm being honest.
I'll be the first to say it didn't go far enough, but I think me and the people on Rumble have different opinions of where it should have gone.
Yeah. So whenever yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. We can leave it at that. Whenever January 6th was happening, I was still working in banking. So I worked at a bank where before I worked Odysee. And it was so funny because everyone that day was like, oh my God, these crazy Trump supporters, like this is just the worst thing to ever happen. And I was like live tweeting the whole day about how awesome it was. And like all tweets, which I have deleted now because I don't want to get suspended. But yeah, that was a pretty good day.
Well, I haven't deleted a single tweet from that day. And I went into that day, like I woke up, went over to hang out with some friends, and I walk into the basement and the TV's on and they're showing the riot. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, people are rioting and they're taking the Capitol building. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. I go on Twitter and then the news is like, Donald Trump has been suspended from Twitter. I'm like, for what? And I find the video that Trump got kicked off of Twitter for. I'm like, that's what got him kicked off? I'm like, how low is the bar nowadays? Because it was a video of him saying, everybody be peaceful, be calm, go home. And I'm like, I'm going to find where the bar is. Like, I'm going to get kicked off of Twitter today, and I'm going to figure out how to do it. And so, like, I was tweeting, like, I was tagging people that were identifying as there. I'm like, burn it down. Like, take hostages. Like I was going off the rails, encouraging people to do, like, the worst and, like, not leave a single stone unburned in the Capitol. And I not only didn't get kicked off, I got a blue check mark.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there you go. I mean, that was an awesome day for Odysee because you had YouTube and all these big tech platforms cracked on literally anything that they saw that went against the narrative. Like Ford Fisher, all he did, he's a journalist for anyone who doesn't know, all he did was record footage of some of the protests and of Nick Fuentes there. He didn't editorialize. And because he didn't editorialize and, talk over the footage and talk about how bad it was, they took down his content from YouTube. And now, of course, it's available on Odysee if anyone wants to see that footage. But just stuff like that, like, in a way, YouTube and Facebook, they're some of our, like, best advertisers. It's kind of like how Nick Sarwark was great for the Mises Caucus. Like, all you guys are doing is driving people towards us, which, I feel bad for everyone on YouTube who's getting censored, but at the same time, like, come home.
Right. And if those of you are watching this on YouTube, there is a link in the description to head right over to my Odysee channel. I have this set up as a live stream and it's mirrored on Odysee as well. And you can watch right there if you have an account. And everyone should have an account on Odysee.
Exactly. Like, and make sure you put somewhere in your description, like, hey, Drew sent me here so that I can show that to, people I need to show it to.
Right. Drew is technically on the clock right now.
I am always on the clock whenever I'm helping Justin.
To be fair, my sleep schedule is not normal, and I'm usually trying to do stuff at 4 a.m. And I think that is kind of a privilege. See, once upon a time, I was complaining to Jeremy Kaufman about features on Odysee while we were playing a game of Magic the Gathering at a friend's house. And he says, and like, I thought he was going to be pissed because I'm like, no, like the app sucks. Like, here's all my problems with it.
Yeah.
And he starts taking notes. And he's like, that's good. We practice complaint-driven development. I'm like, now you're never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah. No, like our iPhone app, my dad, whenever I first got it, he downloaded the iPhone app and he was telling me about like, oh, this sucks and blah, blah, blah. And all of that. I shouldn't say blah, 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 because most of the criticisms were true. And now I have an iPhone as well now. Like along with, I know, because people are going to say like, oh, that's not true. Because I have a Samsung and I have an iPhone. So on my iPhone, I have the Odysee app. And yeah, it's freaking great. Like I was expecting it to be a train wreck, but yeah, it's great. Like I guess we worked out most of the kinks with it. There was a period where we got in a little bit of trouble with Apple because we forgot to filter out porn from the iPhone app. So that was kind of an ordeal we had to go through. But for the most part, like, yeah, it's been great. And
specifically on the iPhone app was the only place you could get porn on Odysee.
Yes. Or if you had a direct URLs for it. But that was like I think like a couple weeks where there was some bug where like the stuff stopped getting filtered. So yeah, I mean, we basically we were a pretty good website for a little time there.
Almost uncensored.
Yeah, Odysee, almost uncensored. That's when we got that 18+ rating. You got to have your parents' permission to sign into Odysee.
Well, that just makes it more enticing.
Exactly. That's like the parental advisory sticker on like a, heavy metal CD. That just makes the kids want to get it. Like I would do that whenever I was a kid. I would see like music that my dad bought on iTunes, and I would see like, oh, the E symbol next to it. It's explicit. I better listen to that one.
So how do we go about getting like things that'll attract all of the masses of normies over onto alternative platforms like Odysee? Like, how do we get the NFL to stream a game to Odysee?
So NFL is probably out of our budget. So I mean, a lot of the work YouTube is doing for us, like I said. So Some Ordinary Gamers, we got him on because YouTube took down one of his streams. So I mean, they're doing a lot of work for us. I think part of it is just developing a good product. So if we can match YouTube in terms of like usability and accessibility and all of these things, I think just that by itself would go a long way. A lot of it too is monetization. And let me also say, a lot of it is creator driven. So people want to go to wherever their favorite creator is. And so I think that a lot of the features and stuff we have to add is related to attracting more creators. So that's why we're doing things like revenue sharing with advertisements. That's why we're doing these cash tipping and live streaming and all of these things. It's so that we can outcompete YouTube in terms of attracting creators, especially if we're trying to go to independent creators and say, hey, we value you more than YouTube does and we want you here. That's the main thing. And I think once you attract them, then their audiences follow. Especially like we have success with this where we'll bring someone over and they'll say, hey, Odysee is the best place to support me. So kind of like how Malice, he says, hey, Locals, my local site, that's the best place to support me. And then all of a sudden Locals gets 20,000 more users from his fans going there. So I think that's the main thing. We just want to build in a way to attract creators.
So, I mean, how do you do that's almost like a chicken and egg problem. Like you want to attract creators, but creators want to go where the audience is.
I mean, that's partly true. A lot of it is people carving out their own niche, if that makes sense.
Right.
So one of the first channels I talked to after I started working at Odysee was this channel, Hammy and Olivia. And they just make dog videos. Like they got a couple corgis and, I love corgis. So I was like, hey guys, want to hop on Odysee real quick? And they brought a lot of their own fans on. And they kind of created their own audience. Like they brought a portion of their audience to Odysee. And then as well, you get an inflow of existing people who are already on Odysee. And you see this. So I think Salty Cracker is the biggest example of this. I don't know if you know Salty Cracker. He's a right-wing political streamer. I think if he hasn't passed 100,000 followers on Odysee yet, he's probably like right about to. He does it to where he does, I think, 2 exclusive Odysee streams a week, and he mentions Odysee in every video, and he puts Odysee in all his descriptions. And yeah, he's gotten a huge portion of his fan base into Odysee. And you see people comment on videos like Salty Army, and like they reply to us a lot with that, like, hey, I'm part of the Salty Army. And you see usernames of people with like, you know, Salty something or other. So he brought all of his fans over. And I think there is a big portion, there is a lot of reason for people to do that because you kind of establish a foothold for yourself on this platform. But you look a year ago, you know, we had not nearly as many users as we have now. We got a portion of it from libraries. I think we got like 10 million whenever Odysee started, something like that. But you look at it, so a good video a year ago, or whenever we started, which hasn't even been a year yet, a good video would get, you know, 100, 200 views. Now we've had videos break into 6 figures. We regularly see videos break 5 figures. So it is just something to where you want to be in early, because I mean, Odysee is going to continue to grow. If you establish yourself as one of these new channels and you establish a base for yourself on the platform, you're going to grow with it. And we have had channels to where they join and they weren't very big on YouTube, and they get bigger on Odysee than they were on YouTube. And we have a few channels like that. One of my favorite is this girl, Little Apostate. She's on Twitter. And yeah, she has more followers on Odysee than she gets on YouTube. And she has done very well on our platform, and she does great stuff. Everyone go follow her. So there is that incentive. With big creators, it is hard because, you know, they say, hey, I'm making $1 million on YouTube every year. Why should I come to Odysee? And within there, it is kind of like that's, you know, that's a pretty good point. But I mean, yeah, like, you know, I understand that. But I mean, we still get them. We have Some Ordinary Gamers. We have Emperor Lemon. We have, you know, Veritasium. So, I mean, there still is that argument to be made. And you'd be surprised whenever you talk to creators. So I'll talk to creators to where they don't make political content. Like they're just whatever. They're just random dudes making, you know, dog videos or whatever. And then you talk to them and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm really into crypto. And then they join Odysee because they're interested in LBC. Or they're like, yeah, you know, I don't really talk about politics, but I am like a right-wing guy. And then they join because of that. So, I mean, there is a lot of that. You'd be surprised how often that happens. I hear a lot of, yeah, you know, I'm a libertarian, which I don't know if you know what libertarians are. Like,
well, let me tell you, sir, you're not a real libertarian.
I mean, according to Reed, I guess not. But yes, I mean, there's all sorts of things. I think the main thing for us is the monetization aspect of it, because obviously we can't compete with YouTube in terms of viewers. Like if you're someone getting millions of views on YouTube, we can't compete with that. What we can do is do it per capita. So like if you have 1,000 people on Odysee versus 1,000 people on YouTube, we want the 1,000 people on Odysee to be worth more than the 1,000 people on YouTube. And then the creators are encouraged, they're incentivized to bring those users over to Odysee. So,
now, I will say I have about 10 times the following on YouTube that I do on Odysee. And I get about 5 times as many views on every video as on YouTube as I do on Odysee. But as far as engagement from the viewers goes, every single video of mine on Odysee will end up having 5, 10 comments and interactions, and everyone's involved and arguing, or usually people picking fights in the comments over something my guest said. Whereas on YouTube, it's people will watch, just thumbs up and move on.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different audience.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely is a different audience. I would say, like, yeah, we got our users are a little bit different than the average YouTube user. YouTube user, you know, you got all the normies, as they call them. Odyssee's a little bit more diverse. But yeah, I mean, YouTube, I would say still probably is like the best place for people to grow and build an audience. Like, I don't think there's any disputing that. You look at the biggest people on Twitter, how many followers do they have? Like a couple million. I know that the president, you know, has like 50 million or whatever, that account. But you look at YouTube and yeah, there are a lot of channels. Like there are more channels than I can count with over 1 million subscribers. Like it is a great place to grow. If you are one of the people who they're okay with, which, you know, that is a constantly changing list. So yeah, if you're a creator, I don't care if you're still on YouTube, I'm still on YouTube. Like use YouTube to grow your brand. Where we kind of want to take it is to where like with Patreon doesn't care if people are on YouTube. That helps Patreon. Because someone grows big on YouTube and then they send people over to their Patreon. Ideally, especially until we surpass YouTube, which, you know, is a dream at this point. Ideally, we would be the place to where YouTube, people grow their audience there, and then they send people over to Odysee. Like, I think that would be a great spot to be in, and that's kind of what we're encouraging with the whole YouTube sync and everything.
I mean, you're definitely seeing that with more of the libertarian in the podcast sphere now, because YouTube has been going hard at us. And like, I've been demonetized. Most of my videos have been demonetized. Nothing's been taken down. Just I'm told I'm not eligible for monetization. Tower Gang has started to have videos just straight up taken down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, not getting demonetized, but just not able to publish and suspended for a week. So now they have Odysee exclusive videos because YouTube wouldn't let them stream.
Yep. And, you know, I am a former guest of Tower Gang, and I'm friends with all those dudes. So, yeah, follow Tower Gang on Odysee. Forget YouTube. On Odysee, you can say all sorts of vile things in the comments. Not that I encourage such behavior, but, you know, make any kind of tower you want in their live chat.
If you encourage them, they'll do it. And
even if I don't encourage them, they'll do it.
All right. I mean, moving on from that, there is one thing I've desperately wanted to ask you for a while. How the hell can you be a Kansas City Chiefs fan?
It's one of those things to where I have been a Kansas City Chiefs fan since I was 11. So the first game I went to, I was 7. They played the Minnesota Vikings. They won, I believe, 13-10. And, you know, it was great. I don't remember that much about it, except at the end, everyone was, you know, yelling really loud, and I was kind of scared. The next game I went to was against Baltimore in January of 2011. It was following the 2010 season. It was in the playoffs. The Chiefs went up in that game 7-3. They led most of the first half. They blew it like right before halftime, and they were down 10-7 going into halftime. Final score of that game was 30-7, and it was terrible. Next game, I went to see them play against the Bills. Home opener next year against Buffalo. Final score of that game was 41-7 Bills, another blowout. The next year, though, I went and saw them home opener again against the Atlanta Falcons. The halftime score of that game, well, I'll tell you how the scoring went. So the Falcons scored a touchdown. Chiefs answered with a field goal. Falcons field goal, Chiefs touchdown. So you got a 10-10 game. Then Atlanta scores a touchdown. Chiefs scored a touchdown, 17-17. Atlanta kicks a field goal going in halftime, 20-17. That first half of football, whenever the Chiefs were competitive, was like one of the most fun experiences of my life to that point, of watching the Chiefs go toe-to-toe with a really good team. The Falcons ended up going to the NFC Championship that year. Final score of that game was 40-24, and the Falcons just completely destroyed them in the second half. But ever since then, I would say I've been a Chiefs fan. And that was the year the Chiefs went 2-14. Jovan Belcher killed himself and his girlfriend. So not the best year. But, you know, and then the very next year, they got Andy Reid and Alex Smith, and it's all been rainbows and sunshine since then.
Until this year.
Well, I mean, you know what? Listen, here's the thing. They're going to what's the record? They're 4-4. They're going to finish 13-4. They're going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, listen, they've been good since I've been a fan for the most part, but I mean, we've still had some rough patches. Like there was a game against the Colts in the playoffs where they were up 38-10 and they blew it. They lost 45-44. There was a game against Pittsburgh where they were up, or no, they scored 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh scored 0 touchdowns and Pittsburgh won.
There was a game against Tampa Bay last year.
Yeah, you know, whatever that, I don't even, yeah, nothing. Yeah, you know, whatever. They blew a 21-3 lead against Tennessee at home, which that was a game Tennessee shouldn't have even made the playoffs. My dad and I were celebrating whenever, like, oh, we get to play Tennessee in the first round. They're so bad, and then they freaking beat the Chiefs. You know, it's been kind of rough. There was the D Ford offsides game where they lost 37-31 to New England.
Will you stay a Kansas City Chiefs fan when the woke mob inevitably forces them to change their name?
That's a very good question. I don't see that happening, at least not anytime in the near future. Because, I mean, with Redskins, like, you can make the argument, like, okay, Redskin, like, whatever. Like, all of their fans, all the Redskins fans, because I look at their subreddit, and Reddit is, like, the most lefty place on the internet. All of their fans are mad about that. And talking about how, like, no, the Indians, or not Indian, the Native Americans loved us and they had no problem with it and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think anyone had any problem with it. But with that, you can say like, okay, Redskin, like whatever. With Chief, like it's a show of respect, unless we're just saying that, oh, making any reference to Native American imagery is cultural appropriation and mocking them or whatever.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's
Yeah,
what they're going to say it is.
I can see the tomahawk chop going away, but I don't see the name Chiefs going away. At the very least, they'll keep the name Chiefs and like change the mascot and the logo, but I don't think Chiefs is going anywhere.
So, I mean, I didn't expect the Cleveland Indians to fall to it.
Well, you know, Indians, like that's been an un-PC term for a while. What did they change their name to? I know it was really stupid.
The Guardians.
Oh yeah, that's awful. Terrible.
Right. There were so many great names they could have picked for the Cleveland baseball team. Well, they went with Cleveland baseball team for a year, which was ridiculous. At least the Redskins are sticking to football team out of spite because they were forced to change their name. Like they're refusing to pick a new name. But like Cleveland went with baseball team while they figured out a new name. They went with Guardians, and now they're being sued by a roller derby team named the Cleveland Guardians for stealing their IP.
Oh, geez. I mean, you know what? That's what you get, Cleveland. Sorry about you. I mean,
I had joked that Cleveland had like the greatest opportunity to pick an actual good name that was relevant to the city of Cleveland. They could have gone with the Cleveland Spiders, which was an old school Negro League team. If they wanted to do an homage to something historical, they could have gone with the Cleveland Lakers, which would have made sense. They could have gone with the Cleveland Steamers, which would have been amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there was a football game on my iPhone that I used to play, and it was like an arcade football game. And one of the team names was the Cleveland Steamers. So like, you know what? They that iPhone app probably could have sued them too.
I would love to see a lawsuit with people arguing over the name Cleveland Steamer.
I mean, that would be, I mean, that's like Bart Simpson stuff, you know, like probably the Simpsons could jump in on there. The guys who did the 2 bar tapes, they could probably jump in on there.
All right. And okay, well, in the same vein, if you don't think the Chiefs are going to get the ban hammer, aside from Reed Coverdale, what has been the most egregious banning you've seen on Twitter?
Oh, goodness. I don't even know. There's been so many that I can't even keep track of them. I think Neocon Remover, he's gone, but I think that he deleted his account. Popo got banned for, you know, sending a picture of his balls to a journalist. I don't know. I can't even really think of anything. Unicorn.
You got to go the Jeremy route. You just tell the journalist to suck your balls, and it's fine. You can't send them a picture.
I mean, that's how that's our game plan at Odysee. Like we've had hit pieces written about us about how we're a Nazi website. Yeah, we don't talk to like we'll tell him to suck our dick. Jeremy's told journalists on Twitter, "Hey, suck my dick." I'd probably say the same thing, suck my dick. I can't think of.
There was an article written about LPNH here in a local paper and said when we reached out to Jeremy Kaufman for comment, he responded with "Tell your whole staff to suck my balls."
Yeah, that's great. That's why Jeremy's awesome. I don't know. Nick Ashley got banned, I think, just for calling someone a bitch. That was pretty ridiculous. I don't know. I can't think of a specific one. They're all bad. I'm against all of them. That's my stand.
I know is like, so how do we get like how do we get Odyssee's next step to be to replace Twitter then?
I mean, we gotta work on that somehow. I don't know. I mean, Gab likes us, so you know, use Gab.
We need a censorship-free Twitter because Twitter hasn't been the same since Donald Trump got the axe.
Exactly, that's a fair point. I will say so. Locals, they just got bought out by Rumble. I love Locals. Like Locals is a great platform. It's a shame that they sold out to a corporate Republican tube, but Locals is a great platform. Follow Malice on Locals. If anyone, I know Karlin Borisenko is on Locals. You know, there's a bunch of people, so I like Locals.
Yeah, I haven't managed to find my way over to it. Every time Karlin suggests going to visit her Locals, I just text her and say, "For what?" And we'll get the information, but nobody else is really. It seems like everybody who's posting to Locals is making their information available everywhere else anyways.
Yeah.
And so there's no exclusivity to doing it.
I mean, it is pretty much just like a Patreon account that acts as like a private Facebook group. Like that's basically it. That's what Malice is. It is. It's basically just a private Facebook group to where his fans can post whatever they want. Which I have a Locals set up. I never made it public, and I don't think I'm going to, at least not anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, it's a great platform. I endorse Locals. Which I mean, same thing with Odysee. Before I worked for Odysee, I was already mirroring my YouTube channel to Odysee. So I just want to say that, like, I I always supported Odysee above any of the other platforms. Like, it's not just, oh, I got hired by Odysee, and then all of a sudden I was like, I went from Odysee sucks to, yeah, Odysee. Yeah, that was the first time Jeremy Kaufman DM'd me, was telling me, hey, sync your Odysee channel. And I was like, okay.
All right. Well, for those of you watching, type in the comments what platform you'd rather see Drew and everyone on, locals or OnlyFans. But we're coming up on the end of our time. Drew, where can everybody follow you?
You can follow me at twitter.com/lockoutdays, which is right down there in the corner. All of my links are that. So like youtube.com/c/lockoutdays, odyssey.com/@lockoutdays. So yeah, that's it. Twitter, YouTube, Odysee. Twitter is where I post all of my funny stuff. Odysee and YouTube are where I post all of my good stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fun having you. Great conversation. I don't think the Chiefs are going to win out the season, but I'm not betting the Patriots do it either. So,
I mean, listen, I need to look at the betting line. I might lay down some money on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
You know, look down at the money line on the Patriots and the Chiefs, and we'll see what we can do. Who comes up with a better record?
I mean, yeah, we'll have to talk off air about it.
All right, we'll do. But everyone else watching, thank you for tuning in. Again, follow that link in the description and go subscribe on Odysee. You know, the platform where I'll never be demonetized or censored. At least as long as Drew promises me I won't. And until next time, be free. Thanks again for tuning in and joining us tonight. Make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button on YouTube and turn on notifications to get alerted every time we go live. If you enjoyed this content, you can join our production team on Patreon by following the link in the description. And don't forget to follow on social media and join our community Discord channel by following the links in the description as well. The best part of all of this is the community that we're building and growing. So go ahead and join us. And thanks once again to our awesome sponsors and patrons for making all of this possible. And if you can't catch the show live, you can always catch it the next day on YouTube, Odysee, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, and wherever else you listen to your favorite podcasts. So until next time, everybody, be free.